Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TechRaptor podcast. I'm Robert Scarpanito, your features editor.
Andrew Otten, editor-in-chief.
Rutledge Doggett, site founder.
Andrew Stretch, zombie editor.
And this week, we're going to talk about a little bit of Dying Light 2. So stick around for that. It'll be very interesting. We also got Total War Warhammer 3 previews up and ready to go. But first, let's talk about some news. Thank God, not that much news happened in the past week. It's been pretty chill. No, it's just really quiet. Just Microsoft bought Blizzard. And Activision, yeah, and King. Can't forget King, of course.
That's right. Candy Crush, baby.
Yeah, but it's a quiet week overall, right, guys? Nothing crazy.
Only the biggest news of the past 5 years.
Like maybe the biggest news, I would almost say ever.
It's pretty big.
Is this the biggest news since Activision bought Blizzard?
Maybe.
I mean, probably.
I don't know. It's kind of nuts.
It was such a this will be the kind of things that, gamers tell their gaming children. I was here when this happened.
I hope we're not sitting around and be like, let me tell you about the time Microsoft bought
back in the day.
Let me tell you about the time Microsoft bought a company embroiled in scandal.
Yeah.
But no, it was such like a trickling, like the rumor sites were like, yo, we hear that this might be a thing. And then Xbox was just like, boom, here it is. We've purchased out of
pretty crazy.
Nowhere.
It kind of reminded me of that guy that tweeted that he's like, I've been working on this story for a year, and they just they tweeted it out.
He just said it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this is hot off the heels too of the Zynga acquisition last week, right?
We were just talking about it.
Right, and back then, like just a week ago, it was like, yeah, this is the biggest acquisition ever, $12 billion, right? Like, nothing can top that.
Now we're 6 times that.
Yeah, Microsoft comes in, $68.7 billion acquisition. Now, it's not like fully done yet, right? Like this is more, they're announcing they're going to acquire. Still has to go through some like approval processes with the FTC and whatnot.
It'll be a while, but
yeah, like it's going to be a while before you boot up, an Activision game and see a Microsoft splash screen on it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even longer until you see Call of Duty no longer on PlayStation.
Well, no, because Phil did tweet out that there had been talks that Call of Duty was going to remain. Whether that just means that like war zones or the battle royale modes or multiplayer, but they're going to like lock campaign or some other specific part to Xbox.
Microsoft's wording has been very, very careful this week in regards to that. So I don't think we're going to see any change for a long time, but I will be curious to see.
So ask that question again 3 or 4 years from now. Is Call of Duty a Xbox exclusive? Probably.
Yeah, and that's the wild thing, right? Is that means Xbox is going to have both Halo and Call of Duty, which leaves what for PlayStation? Gears. I guess Battlefield
and Overwatch
and Gears. Yeah.
Overwatch is also gonna be big.
Overwatch 2, yeah. If that can like turn things around for them, I think this is on everyone's mind, right? Is like, what does this mean for Game Pass? Because obviously this is
it means wonderful things for Game Pass. Thank you for asking the question, Robert.
I know.
Thank you, sir.
I'm glad that we got the PR guy for Xbox Game Pass on the podcast.
He is behind the Twitter account.
Yeah.
It's an insane deal for only $14.99 a month.
Yeah,
I mean,
so it did hit what 25 million subscribers, right? Like Microsoft recently announced,
that's huge,
pretty big. But I mean, think about it this way, right? Like a WoW subscription is like $12, $13, $14 a month.
It's $15. It's the same.
If you do month to month, yeah.
If you do month to month, I mean, if you pay for a big chunk in advance, you get it less. But
right, but now imagine if you have a Game Pass Ultimate subscription, and then on top of that, they add in WoW.
That'd be pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad WoW fucking sucks now. So
no one would still play WoW because it seems pretty bad.
I was talking lore nerd stuff earlier. Let's get into that. It's bad lore on top of it being extra nerdy.
Let's get you to the rocker, Grandpa.
Back in my day,
right now is when he's telling us about where he was when the ActiBliz got
This is
purchased.
the grandpa moment.
And it all changed when that question mark at the custom map changed into a guy. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so like talking about, even the ActiBliz backlog, because, we saw, after everything with Bethesda went through, we saw pretty much the entirety of the backlog that was available get moved onto Game Pass, onto the platforms where they could be. I wonder how far back they're going to go in terms of like the PC collection, because just, if it's, you've now got like Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, you've got Warcraft 2, you've got Warcraft 3 on Game Pass for PC.
Reforged, obviously.
Yeah, I guess it would be the Reforged, yeah, because they did release that. I forgot.
Well, don't forget that Activision owns Sierra's IPs. Sierra Entertainment.
There's lots of
Leisure Suit Larry, King's Quest, a lot of those like older games that were like pretty huge in the 90s. I think I saw something about Ken Williams was like, hey, I would love to do something with this. So that would be kind of cool to see like Ken and Roberta Williams make a comeback with some of their IPs. And just like the possibilities are awesome in terms of what we might get to see again.
It'd be interesting, yeah, because they're gonna own a lot of IPs that haven't really been touched. Like Activision in particular is famous for like, you know what, we own all this IP, but we're only making Call of Duty.
Yeah, they're gonna shift everyone to Call of Duty.
Yeah,
I would love if Microsoft just threw everything on Game Pass and then was like, okay, we'll give it a month, and then whatever has the most downloads and plays, we're gonna start working on that.
Mm-hmm. It'd be like there's I'm thinking like StarCraft 2 has been out forever, and there's been nothing StarCraft since that came out. StarCraft's a huge if there's anything StarCraft related, people would freak out. Like there's all kinds of stuff they could do, and who knows what Blizzard may have had going on behind the scenes. I have no idea. Probably nothing. But
yeah, well, they're working on Titan.
There's well, that's Overwatch.
Yeah,
there's just so much potential for a bunch of stuff. There's so many old IPs. Like are the Toys for Bob people? Are they actually going to the salt mines now? Or can they be saved? Like so many people.
Or Vicarious Visions.
Or them
get their name back. God damn. They got acquired, absorbed, and then name stripped off them in like 6 months. I felt so bad especially as someone who, huge fan of Crash Bandicoot, huge fan of Spyro the Dragon. I think that they worked on the Crash Reignited trilogy, and then everything else got shifted over to Toys for Bob for Crash 4.
Yeah. Well, it's after they just crushed everything too. They just it's not like they had released a dud and they're like, all right, now we need to break you guys up. It's like, no, you guys just killed it.
Yep.
Congratulations.
That's why they had to go.
9 out of 10 game.
Yeah.
Off to the mines.
Yeah. Off to the Call of Duty mines.
Off fishing.
Now, when you think about it, do you guys remember the horrible BlizzCon? Don't you guys have phones?
I don't remember it as horrible, but
yeah. Do you maybe that was foreshadowing? Because think about it, Xbox is on phones now.
That's true,
right? Oh. So maybe Diablo Immortal is going to be on phones, cloud gaming, etc., etc.
Maybe this has been in the works forever. Someone in Slack was saying Mike Ibarra was a plant for the acquisition.
He's been converting people one at a time.
He's been slowly, gathering intel so Microsoft could
also
own
She's
them.
Just nudging Bobby. You talked to Phil lately?
Cheeky Phil, when all of this was going down, when everything with ActiBliz began really blowing up, and it was like 3 weeks ago or something that Phil was tweeting, we're currently investigating and reevaluating our relationship and partnership with Activision over allegations. God, he must have felt so great just sitting there giggling to himself as he hit send on that text. As it's like, we're fucking buying him.
Well, it's like, what was it? What was the event that he had the Xbox on his shelf in the background before it was shown?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I find interesting with this acquisition too, is that right now it feels like Microsoft is one of like the good guys, right? Like just from a PR standpoint, like they're built themselves up very much to be the quote unquote good guys of the industry. And they just acquired probably one of the worst bad guys quote unquote,
currently
in
right
the industry.
now.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a lot of. I think we're going to see Phil be a lot more careful with his words moving forward. I think it's going to be interesting.
I think he's always been so careful about what he's saying, but yeah, they've been putting such a fantastic spin on everything. You know, there's still a company. You know, I talk on the podcast all the time about how much of an Xbox shill I am and stuff. But I know they're a company. They're looking for profits. They're looking for everything. Every well-structured PR statement has got a team of brilliant minds behind it. You know, just looking for you know, the extra interaction they can get. But no, I think just the kind of the good guy Phil Spencer like image that he has, and he has really maintained and nurtured and grown since taking over. He has been able to do PR wise an exact, like a complete 180 from where we were at the, you know, year one of the Xbox One.
Oh yeah. It's amazing. Like it's almost, you know, it's sitting around waiting for that rug pull moment. It's like, man, he's got an insane amount of goodwill behind him.
Yeah.
Like when do they decide, all right, we've got enough in there, you know, enough ammo now, we're gonna fuck you guys up? Like, when does that moment happen?
Yeah, like I'm just waiting for them to be like, okay, Game Pass is now $20 a month, for Game Pass Ultimate at least. I'm 100% waiting for that foot to drop. We also had that weirdness with Microsoft just a few weeks ago, like looking like they had pulled developer access, which a lot of people were using to load emulators onto their retail Xboxes, because apparently the best way to play a GameCube game in 2022 is on an Xbox Series S.
Microsoft solving Nintendo's problems again.
Yeah, amazing.
But you know, they were worried for a bit that, you know, developer accounts were getting deactivated, and you know, they came forward really quick and were like, oh wait, no, we just did some routine maintenance. Don't worry, we're working on getting everyone's dev access back. And it's like they don't even care really to bother like relocking down their system, as they're like, oh no, people are you know, playing illegal backups or anything.
It's got to come from part of their background with, like, you know, they're Microsoft, so they make Windows, obviously, and like they don't give a shit what you do to Windows. Like, what you own. Like, so I wonder if it's part of like, we don't care. Like, it's our software. Like, the idea of it is it's in your hands. Do whatever the fuck you want with it. We don't care.
They don't even care about what they do with Windows.
Yeah. I think part of it too, right, is that it's easy to forget when you're talking about it in the scope of video games, but Microsoft is like a granddad when it comes to tech industry. You know, it's old shit. And they've been through some really rough patches, you know, like they've gotten sued for monopolies and stuff in the past with like Internet Explorer, Netscape and all that, right? So like they've been around. They know what it's like to have to navigate
Hasbro
this sort
being
of shit.
so litigious.
Yeah, so this isn't their first rodeo, right? And I think that now we're seeing, as you know, they have the new CEO, Satya Nadella, and they're like going into all of this gaming stuff, and they're getting further and further into it, dropping $70 billion just to expand their gaming enterprise, right? Like, I think they know all the moves they're making more so than like some of these quote unquote younger companies, younger
been
tech.
around the block.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think they know how to navigate this issue. It's just going to be interesting to see how it goes from here, right? Because there's so many different ways it could go, right? Like think about how much it's going to change the conversation when like, because every year a Call of Duty comes out, every year a ton of people buy it, and this is the reason that Activision puts so many of its eggs in that Call of Duty basket, right? Now that's the Game Pass basket, right? Because next year Call of Duty comes out October, November. Instead of it being like a $60 purchase, it's just a $15 subscription. And then you get all these other games.
And also, you know, talking about the Game Pass bucket, Game Pass Ultimate also includes the EA service.
Yeah. EA Play.
That 6 months after an EA title release, it then gets put on their service. So that's also, the people buying FIFA every year. It's like if they can wait 6 months and then the new FIFA is available, again, as part of that $15 subscription. They're doing what they want to do. Well, they've become Netflix. At this point, we can say it. They've become Netflix. They are this subscription that you will just keep, and even if you don't use it 1 month, you might play one or two things the next month, and it's just easier to let that be a charge that you just forget that you will be getting every 6 months, a year, because the value is unreal. I haven't spoken about it yet. I briefly brought it up in the company Slack, but for myself, in 2021, of the games that I completely completed playing, I think it was 16 or 17 of them were Game Pass games. That's not counting any that I started and got partway through, started and stopped. These are games that I just from beginning to end on Game Pass, most of them day one, played, finished. If I had bought the games at that time, it would have rounded up to about $350. But I paid $160 or something.
So you're saying they basically gave you $200?
Yeah,
pretty much.
That's how that works out, right?
Giving you money.
As someone like me who just rails through games,
loves free games.
Yeah, loves free games. It's unreal, and I don't really play COD, but tell you what, I haven't given it a shot in 6 years, but when the new one drops day one on Game Pass, I'll probably load that up and give it a shot.
The idea of having all the Call of Duty campaigns available, the campaigns are fun. I'm down for that.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about your habits there and compare that to the average, someone who watches a lot of TV and movies, what do their Netflix habits look like? Mm-hmm. That's probably pretty similar. Maybe they finish or get most of the way through maybe 12 to 16 series or mini-series or movies in
I know
a year,
I'm still only on episode 2 of season 2 of Lock and Key, but I know that my Netflix subscription isn't going anywhere, so whenever I want to get back to that, I can.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, that's kind of the benefit, too, whether you finish the games or not. Games Pass gives you that opportunity to try something you might not have tried otherwise and that you might actually like. So I think it also grants a lot of exposure to games that may not have been tried by people, and then people try those, they like them, they share with friends, their friends pick it up. It's kind of it's a win-win for everybody for the most part.
A fantastic thing that I've also seen brought up on Twitter by Blind Gamer Steve,
Steven Spohn,
yeah, is for accessibility purposes, the ability to not have to pay additionally and to be able to load up the game and see if that is even a feasible game to play with a disability is also huge. And that's just an aspect that doesn't really ever come up in the Game Pass conversation. That I guess, in the past it would have been demos is how you could figure out, depending on your disability, whether you are able to play it or not. But, for Game Pass, if it's new Call of Duty game comes out, you can either pay $60, wait for it to be in the bargain bin, months down the line, or just load it up. If it works, cool. If not, then that's that's not something that you would ever need to worry about financially.
One thing that I think is worth discussing too with this conversation, right, is obviously Activision Blizzard's been under a lot of heat, right, for all the sexual misconduct and gender discrimination, right, and it's been pretty bad. I'm sure if you listen to this podcast, this isn't the first time you're hearing about it, right? So it's interesting, right, that Microsoft, just days before the acquisition was announced, that their board of directors announced that they're going to be redoing their own internal policy of sexual misconduct and gender discrimination, with the goal of releasing a transparent report about it. Again, just days before acquiring a company that's been mired in this sort of stuff, right? So it's not that Microsoft is saying it's because of Activision Blizzard we're doing it, but if you read between the lines, I could see that being one of the readings, perhaps.
Again, PR.
Yeah, cynically, like that's always just like, all right, we got to get ahead of this, right? Like get this out of the way. But I mean, even if they're doing it for a cynical reason, if it has a positive outcome, I don't care.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
That's the best you can really hope for with a business, because they're always going to have a cynical or interest reason to do it. But if it also has a benefit to others, like cool.
That's been such a funny part of watching this announcement happen. The conflicting views, or the people who are quite torn. The idea whether is Microsoft or are they not getting close to a monopoly? Should they be allowed to purchase such a large part of gaming and kind of conglomerate it in with themselves? But also, if this is a way that we can get Bobby Kotick out and we can fix Activision Blizzard, then that's pretty positive.
Is that worth it?
Go Monopoly.
Speaking of the Monopoly stuff, so Phil had a interview with Washington Post where they're talking about stuff. We reported on some of what he said, some quotes from it. But one of the things that was interesting to me, and I don't think he meant this in an ominous way, but it comes across that way to me, is that he wants to see Xbox be, like analogous to Amazon has online shopping or Google has search engines and web browsers. He wants Xbox to be that for gaming. And it's like, oh, that's actually fucking scary, Phil. Like, I do not want that to be what they are at all, because that's spooky.
We know that the Xbox TV apps are going to be coming soon as well for smart TV.
Yeah.
So what about? Oh,
that's right.
Yeah. So if you have Game Pass, you buy a new 4K TV, you hook it up to the internet, sync a Bluetooth Xbox controller, and you're playing Destiny 2 online with your friends in the same ecosystem as like on your PC. That's, I mean, it's scary, but just like the lowered barrier to entry is bananas.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of benefits, but it's just the idea of like, what gaming really needs? It needs its own Amazon. And it's like
Xbox is gaming.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, the thing is, if you want to stop that, you need to have competitors, right? And I think this is a good time to look at what's the competition, right? Like,
I mean, PlayStation's still huge.
PlayStation's still huge, and Nintendo's
Nintendo.
But with PlayStation, right, with Sony, their stock dropped the day of the acquisition was announced, right? So it's not even that like
it's a big drop too.
Yeah, so it wasn't that Sony fucked something up, it's not like that they made a mistake. It's just that their competitor made such a 4D chess move that everyone else was like, oh, well, and we know that Sony is working on Spartacus, which is their totally not Game Pass competitor, right? Yeah. But we still haven't seen it. I think isn't that supposed to, like, we're supposed to see something in spring 22, right?
If they're smart, it will be fast. It'll be soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this news like fast tracked some of the Spartacus stuff. But even then, you have to wonder, like, is this the competition that will rival Xbox, right? Because if I remember right, we've seen the leaks of what Spartacus could be like, and it's like a 3-tier system.
Yeah, it's like weird.
Yeah, and it's like the higher tier is like the second tier gets you essentially PlayStation Now, and the third tier gets you PS1, 2, and 3 game emulation, right?
Well, that's the PS1, 2, 3. We don't even have confirmation. We've seen patents show up, but people are questioning whether those were patents that were relative to the process of emulation that the PlayStation 4 took on, because we had those like 50-something PS2 games that were sold for the PS4. But even at that point, if Sony does come through with everything that they are saying, or like with everything that the rumors are saying, still they're going to be behind in the fact that first party day one, and that if I have a PS2 game, I can't just put that into my PS5. Like you can with like an original Xbox game or a 360 title, just putting it in the disc tray.
Right.
When we're talking about this competition stuff, like obviously you can talk about what PlayStation offers or Xbox offers and the services and games they have, blah 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 blah. But I think that some people kind of like, as you were mentioning, that Microsoft is old tech, like they've been around the block a while. They're also still one of the biggest companies in the world with the most money in the world.
Yes.
And Sony doesn't even compare to that either. So like as big as it's PlayStation versus Xbox, it's like, okay, yeah, they're comparable, but Sony and Microsoft, not comparable. Like as a company.
Sony has always been products, not services.
Yeah.
And you've got Microsoft's other half, if you can even call it that, of the Azure wing, the Office 365, all of these things that generate all of the money they need to make a purchase like Activision Blizzard without even batting an eye.
Well,
like,
and then
I believe they're pulling directly from cash reserves for this purchase.
Yeah,
which is
that's insane.
To have that much lot of money to have
money to sit around. That's an insane amount of money to just sit.
Because this definitely would not have been possible with the Xbox 10 years ago because of how Xbox was still very much its own separate thing. Mm-hmm. And with Phil Spencer as well, there was so much talks about how, he as the head of Xbox got pulled in and like really became a proper like C-level at Microsoft, and not just the head of Xbox, but that next level up.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that's worth thinking of, because obviously it's really easy to just pin this as, it's Sony versus Microsoft, PlayStation versus Xbox, because those are the two biggest players. And then Nintendo's always, and it's like its own corner doing whatever it's going to do, and it's always going to be that way with Nintendo. But PlayStation means I don't know how to say it right, but like PlayStation means a lot more to Sony than Xbox means to Microsoft in some ways, because PlayStation is, I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's the most significant chunk of money that Sony brings in comes from that division. And obviously Xbox makes a shit ton of money for Microsoft, and it's a big deal. So in terms of the urgency, Sony needs to do something, because that it is by far their biggest moneymaker and the biggest piece of pie in what they do. And especially since they've been rolling back so much of what they have been putting out, like TVs and appliances and other stuff like that. They're not doing that as much.
Right.
So they're kind of all in on PlayStation, and they need it to work out. So they really need to get out their head out of their ass when it comes to, we are the prestige game place. We will not give you this day one game because you will be happy to pay us $60 or $70 for the God of War Ragnarok, because it is the prestige premier game.
It's the premium product.
Exactly.
Also, that's the big question though, right? Is, I do still think there's a place for, like, if there's only one place you can play God of War Ragnarok, you can bet your ass that there's going to be a lot of people waiting in line to play God of War Ragnarok, right? Or like whatever Naughty Dog's next project is, or like even Horizon Forbidden West 2, right? Like there's going to be people who really do want to play those PlayStation exclusives. I'm one of them, right? Let's be honest, like they hit more often than they miss, right? They're usually really good. The thing is, if someone comes to me and is like, hey, I kind of want to get into gaming, what should I do? The answer is always going to be get an Xbox. That's it.
Yep. Get Game Pass.
Like, I'm sorry, but like that's it. If someone's new to gaming or just wants to like dip their toes in it, God of War Ragnarok's not going to do it for them, right? Like,
oh, definitely. And then I'm thinking back to, it's just personal experience growing up. You don't have money. I lived at a secondhand store or gaming store, where it was trade in a game. Like as soon as you beat a game, trade in, and hopefully you can get enough credits for another one. Or like hopefully it's one I can beat in 24 hours so I can return and get a full refund policy kind of a thing. So it was like one game to the next, and it was one, and you just played that into the ground until you could somehow scrounge up something to play something else. And so the idea of something like Game Pass existing at all for someone in that kind of situation is like, there's no question. There's literally no debate of what to do.
It's an accessibility issue, essentially.
Yeah.
Like in a different way, right? Like, do you pay $500 and then another $70, or do you pay $15 a month and you can play it on your TV with the Xbox app?
The future, if we're looking at it that way, cloud. Like, you don't even need to buy the console.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be weird with how they start measuring metrics and stuff. I guess Xbox for the longest time hasn't been reporting numbers of Xboxes sold, even as far back as the Xbox One. Everyone was clear they were behind in sales. But, when it's to the point that, someone can be 100% part of the Xbox ecosystem because they have a Vizio smart TV, it's just like, it doesn't matter. Game over, man.
No, that's kind of where it seems like Microsoft is looking ahead, where it's like, okay, Sony, be happy with your console sales, but we're looking to the future where consoles aren't even going to matter. Potential, or they're not going to matter for a big portion of people. Because I don't think consoles are going anywhere for a while. Like we've got consoles for a few generations still, but
Stadia would beg to differ. Please check yourself.
But they're definitely looking ahead to that for sure.
Yeah. I think it's really about, like, I mean, Xbox has been saying this for a while. It's about bringing the games to people, right? Like that's kind of been their mission. And so far they're really succeeding. And beyond that, creating a catalog where people will want to come to them for the games.
Yeah.
And so far we just aren't seeing Sony make those similar moves. So it's starting to seem like they have a smaller and smaller catalog in a weird way, right? Like it feels like their catalog is shrinking, or that they're the things that people will want to go to them for are shrinking in a weird way. Even though it's not. Like, it's not like they canceled a bunch of games or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's just when Microsoft buys, Activision Blizzard, who, BlizzCon's one of the biggest events of the year that comes up with a bunch of announcements, and Bethesda had their own E3 stage. It's like they have 3 E3 shows worth of companies under their umbrella now. If you want to put it that way. It's like if you had 3 press conferences in one day and it was just Microsoft stuff. That's
Microsoft Day.
Another news story that we saw this week was the rumored release date of Ghostwire Tokyo, an Xbox game releasing exclusively on PlayStation.
Yeah, and that's going to be in March, right? Allegedly.
Yeah, I think it's March 24th. Allegedly. Based on a store listing leak, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, Sony's going to have to figure out a response. They've not a direct one as much as maybe take a deeper look at what they're doing and say, how can we offer more value through some sort of, PlayStation Plus, whatever other services they've got going on, because I don't pay any attention.
I think I've got it for them.
Oh, yeah.
It is going to be that, now you can purchase your own NFT profile picture for your PlayStation. PlayStation, that one's for you for free. Feel free to take that idea and run with it.
I don't know. I mean,
it'll be hexagon shaped.
That's the future, man. That's the future.
It's hard for me to shake the idea that Sony, not that they think they're better than everybody else, but they definitely think their products are better than everybody else's, including their games.
They're Apple.
And they have superiority.
In a way,
complex.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can find a way to deep dive into their extensive catalog, right? Going all the way back to PS1 and find a way to make that readily available to anyone. Like,
it'd be interesting.
That would be huge if they could make that happen.
Are you still going to be buying that PlayStation 1 game for $20?
Yeah, that's
problem. I mean, that's part of the problem too, is the price is sometimes just surprising. Hey, here's this older game that we're bringing back that millions of people would probably buy, but we're going to price it really high to really just
make
kind
it
of hurt
worth
ourselves.
it. Yeah. I mean, anything that is over $10 is going to immediately cause internet trolls online to say, well, why didn't I just get another month of Game Pass?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, if they could provide a monthly service that gives you access to a huge library of games, way backwards compatible,
the PS2,
like that would be huge.
The PS1 libraries are kind of incomparable. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I think that could be a huge win for them if they could go back and say, maybe we let's start with getting our older catalog more readily available to the masses, where you don't have to pay $75 on eBay to get a copy of a game you want to play, and just make it available on PlayStation. Get some sort of a cloud offering that you can play it pretty much anywhere.
You kind of can with PlayStation Now, kind of.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
people forget PlayStation Now exists, I think.
But also, PlayStation Now used to be more places. You used to be able to do it on your computer or via your TV if you had a Sony TV. But then they dialed that back. Yeah. So I don't know whether they would be able to respin that up again.
And again, a lot of that was because of price.
Yeah.
They've got to figure out their pricing model, because I think that's what's hurting them the most when it comes to this older catalog.
I think an older catalog, but they also, like, if you think of like the first party games that they have, or developers that make games for them, they only make the AAA humongous budget games. Like, they don't have any of your mid-tier, your smaller games in their wheelhouse anywhere.
Yeah.
And they don't have that variety where it's like, okay, here's a $40 Wasteland 2 kind of like game, or like something like that, or they don't have that kind of stuff going on. Yeah, they don't have a smaller, still just great thing, like, and that they just don't have that variety in their catalog.
Yeah,
makes you
wonder. I think too, to Nintendo, right? Like, I still think Nintendo, they've figured it out where it's like they have their own niche, right? Like, they don't necessarily need to directly compare or compete with Xbox and PlayStation, right? Because they're just like, it's a handheld hybrid thing.
Well,
right? Like,
I mean, they've had this philosophy since the Wii,
right? So they'll probably be fine. And like Mario, Pokemon, like, those are such strong brands that they will be fine on their own. But I did just realize Banjo-Kazooie and fucking a Zelda game came out on their PlayStation Now just this past week, right? Like,
that's right.
They're at least tapping into their old catalog too, very slowly, but they're doing it
extremely slowly.
This has always been Nintendo's problem as well. That I remember back on the 3DS, like the emulation wrapper that they used for Game Boy games was just compatible with regular ROM files. I know that I wrote something, and this was like 8 years ago now or something. I was still in college when this big news was coming out, that you could trick the 3DS into looking at your SD card and replacing whatever ROM file it was running in its own internal emulation, and it would like instead get pointed towards that. So any Game Boy game, any Game Boy Advance game, as long as it was like within a certain file size parameters, it all worked. But Nintendo is, charging $20 for a Game Boy Color game only with save states to play on your 3DS, that then you couldn't, activate that purchase on any other platform. People who bought Majora's Mask on the Wii had to rebuy it for the Wii U, and it's now in a separate subscription service for the Switch. Nintendo is just so slow to adopt that.
Yeah, but at least they're doing it, right?
They're trying something.
They're trying.
And like, Nintendo's always gonna be the weird little whatever they're doing. And like you said, like whenever those come out, like Pokemon is by like the biggest media franchise in the world by like a lot. Like in terms of money they brought in, it's like absurd every time I think about it. It's like more than Marvel and Star Wars combined, like something insane like that. It's like Nintendo has, and Mario's also like a top 5 brand, and so it's like they'll be fine. Like they'll be fine.
Yeah, and I mean we're on the dawn of a new Pokemon game coming out too, right? Like,
yeah, but
we're about to see it in action.
We've been seeing it in action very publicly. It's in people's hands.
I mean, yeah, like the sales of it and how much people are probably going to talk about it, and like just it's going to be a big deal no matter what. Even with I feel like that narrative of the Switch is kind of weak has become stronger and stronger, right? Since its release, it's been 5 years now. But sucks to suck. It's the only place you can play Pokemon. It's the only place you can play Kirby: The Forgotten Land.
That's right.
The Lost of Kirby 2.
Yeah.
How amazing would that be as a game?
Right.
You just come in and someone clubs Meta Knight to death. Oh my god.
Kirby gets dark. He just eats people but doesn't take their power. He just eats them. That's it.
Chews them up, spits them out.
Look at me, I'm the zombie now.
Oh man, Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard. Will buy.
So wild, but still.
I don't think we're going to get anything this big for a long time.
I'm calling it now. This is biggest news of 2022.
Oh,
I know that we aren't even done with January, but this is it.
That's it. It's game over.
You know, prediction. Do you think Sony is going to start doing some talk for like, I don't know, an EA or like...
EA's big. You know, I don't know.
Ubisoft
EA's pretty. EA's huge and messy because EA's got all those various like sport licenses and other things going on. Like it's a big ball of mess.
Yes,
EA's
Activision
happily
had Call of
partnered
Duty
with Xbox right now as well.
Well, look at it from this position. Microsoft's market cap is $2.2 trillion.
Yeah,
Sony's market cap is $139 billion.
Yeah.
So Microsoft just paid more than half of Sony's market cap for a company. That is insane. Like Ubisoft's market cap is $7.29 billion.
Pardon my French, but that's just big dick energy. Big old swinging dong energy.
It really is. That's why it's kind of like in the end game. It's like how does PlayStation win out when Microsoft has literally unlimited resources in terms of firepower, and now especially now that, as Stretch was saying, like we've seen it over the last decade, like Microsoft's really investing in Xbox, where before it was like, oh, they're just off doing their own thing. It's like, no, this is a pillar of the company now. Mm-hmm. And once they have that mindset, it's like sky's the fucking limit. Like they're nobody like Phil said, he wants to be the Amazon of gaming or like whatever. Like they have the money to do that.
Yeah. They have this huge backing behind them of Microsoft, who is already a titan in and of itself, and then you start building out this Xbox service that is now becoming a titan within a titan. And it's just crazy to look at, pull up the market caps and be like, and you always think of these companies like Tencent, like, wow, they're huge. They're buying all this stuff. Yeah. They're a fourth of the size of Microsoft in terms of market cap. And that is just like almost unfathomable to think about.
It's as in terms of watching these behemoths, these titans of industry going at it, conglomerating, taking swings at each other, it is absolutely terrifying. Just like the sheer, people see 6.8 billion and that's whatever, but if you like really attempted to conceptualize the idea of how much money that is ludicrous. It is terrifying as like a single person, but as a consumer it is just the most exciting thing.
Yeah. Like looking at it from a business perspective, it is scary to think about. But as a consumer and seeing Xbox grow the way it has in terms of value and in terms of how it's probably shifted each in our own, like how we play games in 2022, it's pretty crazy. I think that, and with the passion that Phil Spencer has towards it, and just how much effort and time he's put into every partnership and every deal, I don't think we're even close to being done. I don't think Microsoft will stop until they get hit with a monopoly charge from the government. If they do, keep I think they'll just keep buying as long as they can.
I think the boundary would be if they tried to buy Sony. That would be the monopoly right there.
Yeah,
right?
Sony or Tencent for sure.
Mm-hmm. Imagine PlayStation being an Xbox brand.
That's nuts. Like, and we've talked about Embracer buying just a metric fuck ton of companies over the last year. Their market cap is only 10 billion.
Yeah, they buy small stuff.
Yeah, but just the rate at which they've bought stuff, you would think that they were a much larger company. But
someday, once they make all those IPs, they're 2,000 IPs they own now.
Yeah, they're incubating.
That's right.
Wild.
Just nuts.
All right, so we just talked about one news story.
All right, now we
had a couple news stories within that.
Now we're talking. It's Garfield time, right?
Yeah, there are going to be 3 Garfield games. Look out for them.
Good chat.
That's it. No, they won't come out on Mondays though.
Something lasagna. Podcast. Something hates Mondays.
Exactly.
Odie.
Let's talk about some games because we've got some pretty cool games that we've all been playing here. Total War, Warhammer 3. Ant, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean, All right. So Total War people, you've seen the news. I'm going to talk to you non-Total War people now.
Oh, okay.
So on a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to play I had access to play the game for 8 hours. I think I played for like 6 or something. So it's pretty good.
Fake gamer. Continue.
And I'm not Stretch. He would have found a way to keep access going. He'd still be. But
he would have played 12 hours in that 8-hour window.
Yeah, on the site right now, you can see the general impressions of playing the Total War Warhammer 3 map, the campaign map, and the new stuff that's coming to the game. And then I also had the opportunity to play 2 factions, Grand Cathay, which is like the China-inspired new faction that's just been made for this game. And then Chaos Undivided, or the Demons of Chaos, what they're calling it in there. So there's impressions on the site of all of that and what goes into them. But in terms of, so when I got done playing Warhammer 3 and I talked to the devs some, the takeaway is like, I can't think of a better franchise or a better game that has this insane amount of support at this level of quality for a niche genre. You know what I mean? Like, I can't, there's nothing comparable to it. Because Total War is niche. It's not, it kind of fits in the 4X realm, but not. Kind of fits in the RTS realm, but not. It's kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
And it
not
does
even
what
in strategy, right?
Yeah, it doesn't even really fit in that perfectly. Like, it's kind of its own mishmash of stuff. And it does it insanely well. And like the Warhammer IP, there is no better IP for it. Like, there's nothing that fits in better with what they've done. But for people that have been kind of interested, but it seems like it's too unwieldy or too big or there's too much going on. 1, you're not wrong. There's a shitload going on. But 2, it's coming to Game Pass when it releases next month. So you'll have a chance to try it out if you want. And if you don't know anything about it, like it's kind of like take, the Civilization series and mash that with some kind of RTS series where instead of your 2 things fighting on the map with just, a simple animation, you're actually going into a battle map and fighting somebody. That's more or less what Total War is.
How would you compare it to another recent Game Pass entrant, Age of Empires 4?
The only way that they're comparable is that you're moving sets of unit on a screen. They're so far vastly different from one another that it's hard to compare. That's why it doesn't really fit. It doesn't fit into your traditional RTS genre. I can tell you fiddle with it. I can't really. You'll just have to see it because there's bodies of units where it's an actual like army where instead of I have 10 archers, I have 1 archer unit that's got 30 archers in it. And then I have 4 or 5 of those units. So I have like 150 archers or whatever that show up in it, or whatever it might be. But anyway, with Warhammer 3, there's so much stuff, Total War Warhammer 3, there's so much stuff going on the map and so many new additions. It's kind of wild. And what they've done that's really cool is that they've made the lore a lot more forefront in this map. And the Warhammer lore is deep and insane. Like, It's crazy.
You were telling us about some in the pre-show.
Yeah,
the pre-roll.
It's like I don't know a lot about it. I know some. I don't read into it. I don't read the books. There's like 1 billion books in Warhammer. But if you find someone that that's like into it, just be like, hey, give me your favorite like backstory on a lord or like a named person in the universe. And what you'll hear will be batshit. And you're like, what the fuck did you just tell me? But it will be rad at the same time. Like, you'll be like, this is crazy.
So as someone, you said that you knew only like a bits and pieces of the lore.
Yeah.
Are you like lost in it? Like, if I'm not familiar with Warhammer, or I haven't played Total War Warhammer 1 or 2.
Maybe a little bit, because there's going to be some details. But like it's mostly.
But it's an entertaining lore.
Well, it's entertaining and it's familiar in a way. So like in the Warhammer 3, the big thing is that there's the agents of chaos are invading the world, and there's the 4 chaos gods who all kind of have their own affinity to something. Like Khorne is one of the gods, and if you've ever heard "blood for the blood god" said by anybody,
yeah,
that's for Khorne, and it's basically like, hey, just fucking murder people and throw blood everywhere. That's Khorne. Like that's kind of his deal. Like everything's red and fire and kill.
And he's the one that has all those offspring, right?
Oh, wait, the children of the corn.
I get it.
Right,
that was a music joke.
Anyway, and then there's like Nurgle. This is the real name of a god, chaos god.
Right. He's going to be in the new Garfield game, right?
Yeah. Nurgle's is Garfield's new enemy. He loves Mondays, but Nurgle's all about like just spreading disease and chaos and like pestilence everywhere. So anyway, these gods have invaded, and you're trying to fight against them. So it's stuff that you know, and like elves are elves, dwarves are dwarves. Like things are familiar. They definitely have their own Warhammer flavor to them, but it's all of it's pretty familiar enough. Like I don't know a lot about most of the lords that I play. I don't know their history, but like basically anybody that's named in it has got an entirely like a 4,000 or 5,000 word Wikipedia entry that you could read on them if you really wanted to know everything about them. But one of the things just to try to sell it to some people, one of the things that I love a lot. So I like dwarves a lot, and what I love about them, and they're an old one. They're not really in Warhammer 3. There's nothing new for them. So if you don't think that there is, if you're wanting to hear something about them, but one of the things I love about them, they have a mechanic that in their lore, they literally keep a book of grudges.
Nice.
Where they write in their own blood. Let's say like some dude wronged him. Like, hey, this dude ambushed us. And they'll write that down. Fuck this guy. Someone get fucking revenge on this guy. And they keep that in a book forever until they get revenge. And they have this massive blood-written book of all the shit people have done to them, and they're like the populace gets mad at you and starts you lose your public order, and they start to get restless if you have not made good on a grudge in a while. Like, all right, dude, we have some fucking revenge we need to get going here. Get moving. Like
that's fun.
And so like they have that kind of stuff. It's for everybody. There's so many different factions, so many different lords, so much lore. Like it's such a crazy good game, like in series. If you're at all interested in wacky Warhammer shit, or you've thought, I don't know about Total War yet. Total War Warhammer is a little more interesting because it's not like standard, like, okay, you have your regular footmen fighting each other. It's like, okay, I have a giant rat ogre thing that's going to fight something, and there's a big cannon back here. And oh yeah, here's my fire-breathing dragon, and like magic and shit where I can blow people up. Like it's anything and everything is going on in that game.
And when does it come out?
I think February 17th, I think.
Okay, cool.
And it comes out on Game Pass, so it's worth a shot. Like,
yes,
it's definitely unwieldy. There's a lot that goes into it. But it's got some of the biggest payoffs, and like seriously, the Warhammer lore is crazy and fun. Oh, and one thing I should mention, if people didn't know, like Grand Cathay is a new faction in this. And what's really neat about it is that it was referenced in Warhammer Fantasy before. Games Workshop, who owns Warhammer, has just kind of abandoned fantasy. They said, okay, we're done with that. We're moving on to a new setting. But because of how popular the Total War Warhammer series have been, they're revisiting fantasy and adding stuff to it. Ooh. And they built out Grand Cathay as an army specifically for Total War Warhammer 3. And it's going to be a real one for the tabletop game that Creative Assembly, the devs behind Total War Warhammer, helped make.
That's pretty
rad.
Yeah.
So they're reviving something that people were very unhappy to see go. Extremely unhappy with what happened. But so it's neat to see that get some love. It just based on what's really a niche game being made so well that it's selling crazy well.
But it sounds like it'd be a really good just like Saturday afternoon, like you have no plans, just like sink into it kind of game,
It's definitely that one more turn is strong. Like,
love those games.
It's strong in there.
Hell yeah. Well, that's Total War Warhammer 3, right? Not Total Warhammer.
That's right. It's Total War Warhammer. Two different words. They're not
Right.
combined.
Oh, that's pretty great. Dying Light 2, Rut.
Yeah,
Stretch,
we've been killing zombies.
You got early access?
Yep. We got access. Stretch and I did a couple days ago, as did some of our other staff. So we'll have a review, we'll have a preview, we'll have features, guides, you name it. We're gonna be. There's a lot of us playing, and it's. I mean, for me, it's
really
pretty
fun.
good so far. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Rut, you said that you had never played the original Dying Light, right?
No, we went to E3 in 2018 and we saw the behind closed doors thing, and I was like, this is a game that I think I could definitely get into.
Oh my god! This whole time I thought you're this big Dying Light fan with how much you've talked about Dying Light 2 the past like 2 years. I'm like, my god, and you haven't even played it?
No,
He's a fake fan. Fake fan.
no. I just keep seeing everything they say is going to be a part of it, and I'm like, yeah, this sounds like a game I'd like.
Okay.
Yeah. So I 100% completed the original base game and the first DLC. I didn't get around to picking up the additional DLC, so I ran that game to the ground.
And that was 200 hours, 300 hours?
Yeah. Only 150. You know, I was really light into it. But Dying Light 2 so far, really, really cool. Obviously, we can't really say much story related. But in terms of like the parkour, feels great. One of the things that I love about the first Dying Light that is definitely coming up with Dying Light 2, and I'm only 5 or 6 hours into the game at the moment, is just how you feel so weak at the beginning of the game. And they've added in some extra things like, you know, you can only be in darkness for a little bit of time. At the start of the game, as you build yourself up, you can afford to be in the dark. And that's not just at night. That's like if you are in a building that you do not have a direct line to sunlight, there is a countdown timer. So it makes some of these early missions like really tense. They do such a good job setting the atmosphere. I've been playing with headphones on, and it's been terrifying, heart racing. When you get to like halfway in your meter, a little like a beep or a cough will happen. There's been so many times that I have been like in the middle of stealthing through like 8 zombies in a room that are all like asleep. You know, I've got a weapon half broken, don't want to waste any more of it. Silence, and then just and it just freaks me out every time. They've added some really cool stuff with the parkour. You kind of, for the more difficult to reach like ledges and stuff, there's like a little bit of a magnetism to it, which is super helpful. You know, it definitely means that you make those jumps. You can definitely feel the magnetism happening.
Like if you're close enough, the game just kind of gives you a last
push
level.
you over.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if there was like a funnel, if you're like trying to jump onto like a smokestack or something, it's like, imagine there's like a funnel above it that like, as long as your character's in it, they'll get like drawn that little bit further to landing correctly. And I don't know if you've noticed, Rut, but the way that the music reacts when you're parkouring is so cool. It's like music will be playing, everything will be normal, like, you know, whatever's going on. When you like make a jump over a building, the music will like slow down. It's so cinematic. It's so much fun. It'll slow down.
Feels like it slows down a little bit when you're making those massive jumps.
It's like very like it pulls your stomach up into the chest as you're like and it like kicks in again when you land. It's so cool. It's such like a neat little thing. But I guess you know, playing on headphones on my PC, I've just been getting so into the atmosphere of the game.
Do they yell parkour like Michael Scott?
Parkour.
But do you yell parkour?
Yeah, are you doing it?
One odd omission is, and I haven't like looked at the full skill tree, but at least at the start of the game, there's no slide. So
That's thrown me a couple times. It's like, I'll just run up to this, hit crouch and slide, assuming that was the thing. I just ran right into the wall.
Yeah, you run into it, crouch, go through, uncrouch, and start running again. It's like, what's going on?
That does feel like I feel like that's just in my brain. I would assume it, right, based on the parkour and everything.
Or literally every other game that has slide.
Yeah, true.
But no, so for where I am, at least, as a big fan of the first Dying Light, parkour feels really good. Gameplay feels really good. Story's been fun so far. Definitely front loaded for a lot of stuff. So I'm definitely still like waiting in the terms, the names, the places, the everything.
So what kind of vibe is Dying Light? I've never played Dying Light. So is it like we're super serious, we're telling you a serious, dramatic zombie story? Or is it like
it's a bit of everything.
They get around it with like, you'll meet the people at, their own safe house that are like, really blasé about the whole apocalypse thing, because like they've made their own little like niche safe spot in the world. There's the authoritarians, there's the people who just like,
the
praise
gamers.
the coming of the there's the people who like praise the coming of the zombies, and it's a really fully fleshed out world. The world feels lived in, and I think that's a compliment that I've really started to like giving games. If the protagonist was not there, I can imagine the lives that all of these NPCs would be leading.
Yep.
It
does feel very real. Like, if this actually happened, this is very believable in
the kind of like dynamics and
what the environment would look like. Yeah.
Right.
That's definitely hard to achieve.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, does it feel like, because I know it's also open world, right? So do you often feel like I have to get to the next mission? Like, is the pacing of it that way, or do you kind of feel like there are these moments where you can kind of chill and
my ADD just takes over. I'm like, ooh, another point. Ooh, another point. Ooh, I definitely shouldn't have done this because I just got shit stomped. Because there is like a level of certain areas are higher level, and you have to either be more careful or just avoid them until you've geared up a little bit. But I mean, at times there's almost overload of the stuff that's around you in terms of there's dark hollows that you can explore, but you have to wait until night for that, or it just won't end well for you. And then
there's windmills there that you can climb up. There's water towers that are a thing. I still don't know what they are even. There's a whole bunch of like deep quarantine area that like, and a lot of this I know from the publicly available trophy list. And so there's a lot going on. If you sit down and you're like, man, I'm really in a mood to explore, that's definitely something that you can do. If you're in the mood to parkour, if you're in the mood for combat, they really, they lay everything out at you, at your feet.
Because that's the thing I think I'm most excited about with the game is exploration and the parkouring of it. Because, I think to Mirror's Edge Catalyst, do y'all remember that game?
Yeah.
Mirror's Edge 2. And the story of it was meh, camping was meh. But just running around that city felt so cool.
It has big Mirror's Edge vibes.
Okay, all right.
Like around the city as well. It's not, things won't be highlighted red or anything. But there's like, people who have created like faux shitty structures to like give you a bit of a better ramp off one building to get to another, or like half made rope bridges that you need to like short hop across. It does a really good job but it doesn't feel video gamey, I think, which is another pretty impressive thing, that they have built a world fit for parkour. But it hasn't been like, you load up a Tony Hawk game and it's like, oh, well, everything has been made skatable. This doesn't feel like, oh, everything has been purposefully made for my, as the main character, privilege to parkour around.
Right. It's like natural context clues.
Yeah, it feels realistic, right? Even some of the like rest areas make sense in terms of they're not just like placed here. It's like this is a barricaded building that you have to, find your way into so that you can unlock the rest area or the respawn zone.
Right.
And same thing with like the Dark Hollows, and just the random things that are littered throughout the map. It all feels very real and believable rather than, like you said, kind of Tony Hawk-esque. This was made for this specific purpose.
So what about fighting the old zombies? Is that all like? So it's Dying Light 2. It was Dying Light 1 where it's like, all right, I'm just gonna be fucking mowing them down, or
combat for me was one of the weakest parts of the first Dying Light. Like it's fun when you get like more combo moves and stuff later. It definitely feels much better. But much like any first-person melee fighting, it's no one has quite yet figured out how to make first-person melee combat good. It's a whole bunch of moving forward and backwards and strafing and mechanically mashing the attack button.
Basically, we have not improved since like Morrowind. It feels like
we've
been stuck at that forever. There is some
fun stuff with what type of weapon you have. Like if you have a bludgeoning weapon, then you can like take out a zombo's knees and it will like hit to the ground. Or if you have a slashing weapon and go for the head, even if they still have their health, like some health remaining, whatever like the percentage chance is, you might just lop that zombie's head right off. And obviously at that point it's not going to be much of a problem.
So my most important question, do they call them zombies?
Yeah, they call zombies. Actually,
yes.
I don't think that I've heard anyone say what they're called.
Oh, they're just them?
I think they just say infected.
Yeah, I think they might just say infected.
That's one of the least
They call them Zombinis, Otten. There you go.
Oh, that's dude. Let's talk about Zombinis.
No, no, let's not talk about
Look out
Zumbini.
for that big Zoombini.
Bring me back to first grade.
Problems.
Okay. Infected is, I guess, one of the least egregious.
But it's cool. I still need to. My preview should be going up. I'm gonna give myself a challenge here. My preview should be up on Monday. I currently have 2 sentences in that draft, so let's hope it's up there. But
it's wild. We're recording this on Sunday at midnight too, so this man's just mad dashing to the finish line.
Actually, yeah, no, need to give context. It is currently 2 p.m. on Saturday. But yeah, you can probably go to the site right now or in the next few hours and find that preview. Otten, you're welcome.
Yeah,
I think you should be apologizing to Sam.
Yeah, that's Sam's problem.
Yeah, probably.
I just schedule it.
Well, that's Dying Light 2. I think the full game comes out, remind me, February 4th?
February 2nd.
Oh,
the 2nd?
Our embargo's the 2nd. Yeah.
Okay.
So embargo time, you'll see Dying Light stuff dropping on February 2nd. But there's still, I guess it's worth noting that even with that embargo, we're supposed to hold some stuff back a little bit in terms of later game things until release.
Don't want you to spoil it.
Yeah. Otherwise, you spoil it for the people that might be playing the game.
Right. Like, we don't plan on just being like, and this is the ending or whatever. And I think that does it for this monstrous episode today. Guys, Microsoft is going to buy Activision Blizzard. I still can't get over that, right? That's nuts.
That was not what I expected to wake up to on Monday.
Right?
I sat down, had my coffee, opened Twitter. The first words out of my mouth were, holy shit.
Well, that does it for this week's episode of the TechRaptor podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, feel free to leave a review for us on iTunes. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, a thumbs up and a subscription would be really great. And let us know in the comments below, what do you think about the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard? Are there old games that you want to see revived from under the Microsoft umbrella? Perhaps Zork? Who knows, right?
See, I was going to mention that too.
Yeah, let us know if you want to see a Zork revival. And if you want to see more of us, you can check out TechRaptor.net, where we have reviews, features, previews, news, etc., always going up every day. Or you can wait right here on this feed next week, where we will be back on Monday. We'll see you then.
I just forgot, so we didn't say something. Did you all see the Peppa Pig next-gen trailer?
Thanks for coming, everyone.
See you later.